some pretty interesting things have been going on. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a legendary fighting game for multiple reasons. It left a huge impact back when it first came out, I want to say in 2000. And it's just it's just too many reasons to list. One reason is there's a bunch of Marvel vs. Capcom crossovers created before that one, like X-Men vs. Street Fighter, or X-Men Children of the Atom, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, and Marvel vs. Capcom 1. They basically took every single character in those games, except the boss characters, and dumped them into one big fighting game. And most of those games were 2v2. They made it 3v3. Not only that, but there's a bunch of crazy fucking glitches in the game which makes characters broken. And it's not supposed to be in the game, but it's so good. It makes the game better, if that makes sense. It's weird, but it's crazy. So yeah, it's a very loved fighting game, and it has been underused. You know, these days classics are always being brought back for to be installed digitally. You know, Street Fighter 2. How many new versions of Street Fighter 2 we got on the Wii? We got on the PS3, Xbox 360, PS2, PS4. You know, so Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Marvel vs. Capcom period really didn't get that many re-releases. I mean, if you're looking at after the arcade releases and the initial console releases for the original ones, like the Sega Saturns and the PS1s and stuff like that, Marvel 1, that didn't get a re-release until the PS3 and Xbox 360 for Marvel vs. Capcom Origins. I want to say it was Marvel Superheroes and Marvel vs. Capcom 1. And Marvel vs. Capcom 2, after the Sega Dreamcast, PS2, and Xbox, after the drop of those three consoles, that didn't get re-released until the two same consoles, PS3 and Xbox 360. So what happened was that, I don't know the specific details, but it had something to do with Disney buying Marvel, and all those copies of the game, they got taken off of digital listings. Yeah. And Marvel vs. Capcom 3, same fate. You couldn't download it. You could only find Marvel vs. Capcom 3 in stores, because I believe they were still being printed, but it was harder to find physical copies of the older version because they're so old. So they were just like blocking Marvel vs. Capcom period for a while. It wasn't until Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite's reveal that they showed the need to want to bring back a Marvel vs. Capcom. They showed us some signs. So I want to say when they revealed Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, they also re-released Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 for the PS4 and Xbox One, I believe. I think it came on the Xbox One. I'm pretty sure it did. So they re-released Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Let's go. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite comes out. Fucking flops. We don't hear anything for a while. And people think that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite might have killed Marvel vs. Capcom, because Disney, they gave up on making their own games because they suck at it, so they just license it to other creators like Insomniac and stuff like that, and Square Enix to make that Avengers game. So Disney gave up on making Marvel game because they're ass, which is for the best. And Capcom is one of their people that they made games with in the past, so I want to say Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, it's both of their faults that the game ended up the way it did. Capcom on the development part, but they weren't funded enough, I believe. And Marvel, they just, you know, MCU this, we don't want X-Men. Oh, they just functions. Oh, function show, you know, they just fucked the whole shit up. Bad PR for the game too, so. But I believe this is a golden opportunity for them to bring shit back. You guys know, famous YouTuber known as Maximilian Dude made a video, basically a call for everyone to shout out to these companies to bring Marvel vs. Capcom 2 back. Hashtag free MVC2. And it's more of not just a money-making opportunity for Capcom, just for game preservation period. It'd just be good to have that game back. It's a legendary game. There's no excuse for it to not be re-released like all these other games. Really the only way you could play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is if you were lucky enough to download the PS3 and Xbox 360 versions, or you could jailbreak your PlayStation 3, which is how I played it on my Moonkiller channel. A friend of mine had a jailbroken PlayStation 3, so that works too. Or you emulate it from the Sega Dreamcast or PS2 versions. Why would you play the PS2 and the Xbox versions? I don't know. But the Sega Dreamcast versions. Or you were lucky enough to buy those versions. So yeah, it's not very easy to play Marvel these days unless you don't care about piracy. Which the legal way is really the best way, the most easiest way anyone could get their hands on Marvel 2. Dreamcast preferably. So, I have an update for this. Our voices were heard. The head of Digital Eclipse is on board with hashtag free Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or free MVC2. He is on board. Let me tell you what Digital Eclipse did, alright? So their focus is on game preservation, which is basically what we're trying to do here. And they were the ones that released the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, I want to say, was it last year or no, like 2 years ago, right? They were the ones that released that. So they brought, what they did was they took all those games, the original arcade ports, and ported them, which pissed a lot of people off because the arcade ports that they ported were the vanilla versions of the game, which had bugs and stuff like that, or they weren't patched. So I didn't really mind, but I'm a little nitpicky. On versus mode, you couldn't see like the KO screens, because right when the match ended, it took you straight back to the menu of the fucking, you know, the collection menu instead of keeping you inside the game. No victory quotes when you're on versus mode, so that kind of sucked to me. You changed the stage from the collection menu. Is not in game because it is the arcade port. You can't pick the stage on the arcade version of the game. Only the console version. So you use the HUD of the collection menu to do it. So yeah, it's a little weird. But at least they added training mode for those games. That was pretty good. An arcade port having training mode, that's pretty fucking crazy. Play online, so it wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best either. Like, people preferred Iron Galaxy Street Fighter 3 Third Strike Online Edition over Digital Eclipse's Street Fighter 3 Third Strike arcade port, which had online play on it. Which I find interesting, because if I'm not mistaken, Iron Galaxy, they just took the Dreamcast port of Street Fighter 3 and or the console port and just, you know, gave it online support, which is pretty interesting. And I guess the console version of Street Fighter 3 is pretty much perfect too, and the music was better too, actually, which is why I like the the console version of Street Fighter 3 more than I like the arcade version. The music just sounds better on the console version. Now, Digital Eclipse is on board. There's still obstacles we have to get across, like Disney. They own Marvel. We don't know if they're gonna be fucking, you know how they are, you know how they could be, you know how Disney could be. So let's see what we're dealing with here. There's so many different versions of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 to choose from. So I'm gonna start with the worst version ever. The worst version, and I'm not gonna count iOS. I think I heard it was released for iOS. We're gonna ignore that. Fuck mobile. I'm just gonna like get that off my chest. Fuck mobile. But the worst version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 anyone could buy is the PlayStation 2 version. After Marvel vs. Capcom 2 released for the Sega Dreamcast, they released it for the Xbox and the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 version has no online play. There's frame drops, random frame drops, low sound quality, like the hit sound effects, you could barely fucking hear them. Certain combos just don't work at all. And I believe they changed how you do certain character special moves, the input thing, so they removed some input commands. They removed certain frames from certain characters. So yeah, and it has longer loading time, so you don't want the PlayStation 2 version. Now, if you want a better version of a console port, you want to go for the original Xbox version. So compared to the arcade version, it has lower color contrast, which is something that the PS2 version also has. So yeah, the colors in both versions are a little darker, not as vibrant as the arcade version. Same shit, low sound quality. So sound quality is as shitty as the PS2 version. For some reason on the Xbox version they shrank the health bars. Longer loading times just like the PS2 version. On the title screen they changed the Marvel logo to look more like the modern one. And longer load times, and of course no online. So yeah, the game doesn't have horrific glitches like the PS2 version, or they didn't take away from it like the PS2 version, but all in all it still fucking sucks. The Sega Dreamcast version, which is like the original version that released in 2000, is one of the best you can get because it's the closest to the arcade version. Why is that? Well, it turns out the arcade version ran on the Sega Naomi, which is pretty much what the Sega Dreamcast is made out of. It's pretty much a home version of the Sega Naomi. So you pretty much have an arcade system in your house, and it's not as expensive as the fucking Neo Geo was. So it's a good deal. So yeah, and it has online play, so it's pretty damn good. It has some game-breaking glitches like the arcade version. I believe so, if I'm not mistaken, which is kind of funny. Now, we have the version from Backbone Entertainment. Backbone Entertainment took the Sega Dreamcast port. They made some adjustments so it could fit your entire screen, because remember, this is an old game, so it's meant for like smaller screens. We're in the HD era, so 1080p, baby. And get best part, it doesn't interrupt gameplay. It doesn't change any balancing. Like, they pretty much kept the game the same somehow. It's perfect. So it doesn't scale anything differently than it did when it was on a smaller screen, which is perfect. Don't know how they did it, but they fucking did it. Funnily enough, some special attacks disappear because I guess the game is still reading it like it's on a small box. A little small thing, but it isn't bad. You're still playing the same game at the end, so you know, pretty good. They did get rid of some game-breaking glitches which were in the arcade version in general. So it's pretty much a patched version. So, which version is Digital Eclipse going to use? Honestly, I don't think they would use Backbone's, because Backbone is their own company. So they're not just going to take something that another company did and then fucking do it. And two, they're purist. They're purist, I believe. So I think where they fucked up with the Street Fighter release, they're going to shine in this release, because I believe they are going to grab the arcade version straight from the Naomi, and just give it to us straight. All the glitches, all the game-breaking glitches. While some people aren't going to like that because it's going to fuck with online matches, a lot of people are going to be so happy because this is the original version. The first version of Marvel vs. Capcom is now available to the public. That's great. Everyone snatch it while you can. Snatch that shit. And just to be sure, they're going to release physical copies of that shit too. So, we're good. We're going to be good for like another 2 decades until the game starts to like die down. Just in case Disney wants to show their ass to us again. So, that's pretty good. Now, here's a problem. The arcade version is going to be pretty fucking shitty to play online because of the game-breaking glitches. So why don't they take it a step further and do what they did with the 30th anniversary edition? Give us different versions of the game. What do I mean by that? Really, we only need 2 versions of the game. We need an arcade version, and I want to say a Dreamcast version. Or not even that. Either a Dreamcast version or a version that's fixed. A version, because the Dreamcast version is pretty much the same, but it's fixed. So why not give us the Dreamcast version, similar to the Backbone, a little altered, so like you can't break the game during online matches, because that'll be a dickhead move. So give us like a fixed version that's playable online. I don't think that's a lot to ask. That would be great. All we need is for Disney to jump on board, and then this game is going to come out. And we gotta thank Max for this. This isn't the first time Maximilian dude has actually affected the fighting game community in terms of releasing a brand new game. I never played Killer Instinct, but he was heavily involved in the development of that game. So we have a chance here. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 might come back if we play our cards right. Let's just hope and pray for the best. You just gotta, come on, Disney, please, please. It's all on Disney, folks. That's all I gotta say. Disney, the ball's in your court. Capcom, I think they're gonna be good with Digital Eclipse. It's all on Disney because they own Marvel at the end of the day. So let's see what we got. Hashtag free Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on Twitter. Spread the word, everybody. Free MVC2 on Twitter. Hashtag free MVC2 on Twitter. Let's get this shit trending again and again and again. Peace.